I recently asked myself why I keep on replaying Lies of P. The combat is not bad by any means. In fact, the mechanic that allows you to make different weapons by changing blades and handles honestly keeps the gameplay fresh every time I play. But if I'm being completely honest, the thing that keeps bringing me back to Lies of P has to be the world building. Lies of P of course takes inspiration from other Souls-like games in the sense that it doesn't give you 100% of the story. It's truly up to you to do multiple playthroughs and make connections to get a better understanding of its world. And Lies of P has many of these instances. And I actually plan on making several videos about these, but I thought I would begin by talking about the biggest mystery found in the game, the mysterious Stargazer. Now, if you've watched my trailer breakdown for Lies of P Overture, you know that I briefly talked about the Stargazer there. I pointed out how we know the Stargazer will play a role in the story of the DLC, most likely as a means to travel back in time, but I didn't get into what I thought the Stargazer was, because it doesn't take a genius to see that this Stargazer is very different from the rest. Every other Stargazer we come across in the game has ergo surrounding it, and more importantly is operable. Meanwhile, the Stargazer found outside St. Frangelica's Cathedral is covered in branches and isn't operable. But why?
Why?
What's so different about this Stargazer? Well, I believe I have a theory. A very sad theory, but a theory nonetheless. But first, let's talk about the Stargazers in general. In terms of gameplay, Stargazers can be used by the player to assemble new weapons, store items, and more importantly, fast travel to other locations in the game. But when it comes to the lore, the Stargazers had a much more interesting function. During the petrification disease, the Stargazers were responsible for capturing ergo spores that would otherwise infect the people nearby. So for the Stalkers, the Stargazers became a survival base of sorts. Now, let's go back to the Stargazer in question. Why is it that this Stargazer doesn't work? Why doesn't it collect ergo spores like all of the other ones do? Well, here's the plot twist. I think this Stargazer does in fact collect ergo spores, but it does so not to protect the people surrounding it. I think the Stargazer collects ergo spores to feed something, or rather, someone. Now, let's talk about the other peculiar detail regarding the Stargazer. Why is it that this Stargazer is covered in branches? What is the significance of this detail? Well, if you pay close attention to the game, you will notice that there's only another place in the game where you can see a similar overgrowth of fauna. This is found inside Hotel Krat, more specifically, the courtyard where the gold coin tree is found. Now, this is where things get interesting, because if you remember, the gold coin tree isn't a regular tree. According to Sophia, the gold coin tree was made using the body of a listener.
The gold coin tree is a pathetic creature they created from the listeners. Like many of their creations, it's tragic, but useful.
We have no reason to distrust the word of Sophia, but if you did, all you have to do to realize that she's telling the truth is look at the shape of the tree. Clearly, the gold coin tree has the shape of a woman hunched over, with the small branches and leaves being her transformed hair. Now, the history of the listeners being turned into gold coin trees is not very clear, but at least we know that it didn't start with the alchemists. In fact, the gold coin tree found in Hotel Krat was actually discovered by a knight, who soon after discovering its medicinal properties built a castle around it. This castle was eventually bought by Lady Antonia and turned into the place we now know as Hotel Krat. Now, during this time, the rich families of Krat and the alchemists were still getting along just fine. So Antonia had no problem with the alchemists using the gold coin tree. But this all changed after Simon Manus became the alchemist leader. Now, why were the alchemists interested in the gold coin tree to begin with? This is a little more difficult to put together, but I'm sure it had something to do with the Saintess statue, the only thing in the game that needs the tree's coins to function. And we might have a little clue as to what the alchemists were using the gold coin fruits for. We can learn about this in Alidoro's notebook. He starts the entry by saying, "I do not regret destroying the Saintess statue. I had to stop it from being used for humans." Alright, bear with me, I'm going to bring this back to the Stargazer, I promise. So Alidoro had to destroy the Saintess statue because the alchemists were planning to use it on humans. What exactly does this mean? The only piece of lore regarding the Saintess statue is found in the key that opens the room to where the statue is. The key simply says, "This was a Saintess of Mercy statue that brought back to life the puppets under golden divine protection." So if we take the description on the key with what Alidoro said in his notebook, we can deduce that the alchemists were trying to bring humans back to life using the Saintess statue. An explanation for why they would have to do this can be found in their failed ascension experiments. Maybe they wanted to use the Saintess statue as a restart option, meaning that if their participants failed to ascend and die in the process, they could simply be brought back to life so they could try again. This is only a small theory, I'm not necessarily married to it. The important thing is that they needed the gold coin trees to access the Saintess statue. So when Lady Antonia stopped collaborating with the alchemists, they were cut off from the gold coin fruits that they so desperately needed. So they had to get creative, and this is where the mysterious Stargazer comes in. Now, when it comes to this Stargazer, we're always asking why it doesn't work or why it's covered in branches. But a small detail that often escapes us is, why is the Stargazer found in a burial place to begin with? Well, I think I know what the answer is. I think below this Stargazer is the body of a listener, which is why we can already see the same overgrown branches found in Hotel Krat. And the reason it has a Stargazer on top of it is to feed the body of the listener so it can grow just like the tree found in Hotel Krat. Now, the reason the tree in Hotel Krat does need a Stargazer is because it was planted right above the relic of Trismegistus, the biggest deposit of ergo found in all of Krat. But after the alchemists had a falling out with Antonia, they couldn't tap into this ergo vein any longer. So they had to get creative, and that's when they captured a listener and fed it ergo so it could produce their own gold coin fruits. But now we get to the other part of the mystery. Who was the listener they captured to become their gold coin tree? And I think I have an idea that came to me when Sophia was talking about other listeners.
If they get the chance, the alchemists might force me to make such a tree for them. Or something even more tragic.
Maybe I'm reading too much into how she said it, but the sadness in her tone almost sounded like she witnessed someone close to her being turned into a gold coin tree. And if that's the case, it could only be two people. It was either her father, the previous leader of the alchemists, Valentinus Monad, or it was her mother, Isabel Monad. Now, you can find a book that talks about what happened to Valentinus Monad. According to this report, he passed away during the Rosa State incident. But let's be honest, the people who wrote this report can't necessarily be trusted with this information. By this point, they were already under the control of the new leader of the alchemists, Simon Manus. So it's very possible that during the Rosa State incident, the alchemists captured Valentinus Monad with the intent of turning him into a gold coin tree. This is certainly possible, but I think it's slightly more likely that Valentinus was killed. I'm sure Simon Manus wouldn't want any loose ends with the previous leader. And yeah, technically after being turned into a gold coin tree, the listener is no longer there. But if I was Simon, I would make sure and just have Valentinus killed. This leaves us with Sophia's mother as the only candidate for this mystery. And this one is not too hard to believe, because Sophia herself confirms that her mother was a listener.
I inherited the power from my mother, who hated it, called it the devil's power. So I kept it a secret that I could talk to puppets.
If this theory is right, it puts into context just how evil Simon Manus was. He took a listener who didn't even like having that power to begin with, and used said power to imprison her forever. Also, he could take advantage of her sorrowful tears for his evil machinations. I also assume that he had Sophia watch this whole painful process, possibly as a not so subtle way to threaten her if she didn't do as he said. But there you have it, guys. I think I solved the mystery of the Stargazer. I think underneath it is the body of a listener. But definitely let me know what you think about this theory. Do you think I solved the mystery? Is it possible that a listener is buried underneath? Whatever your thoughts and theories are, make sure to leave them in the comments section below. I plan on making more Lies of P videos, so if you're interested, make sure to hit like and subscribe to the channel. Now, as always, I want to give a big thanks to all of my YouTube and Patreon members for their monthly support of the channel. I owe the success of this channel to all of you guys, so from the bottom of my heart, thank you. I would also like to thank everyone who likes and shares my videos. It may not seem like much, but it really does help. And with that said, thanks for watching, and remember, go forth in the name of Olympus.